Well, hello there, dumpster divers and divas. Welcome to my first recorded video I'm doing on StreamYard, and I have no idea how it's going to turn out, so bear with me. We'll see how it goes. But the other day, Just J Hip was reading this lovely article I wrote on Substack regarding my critique of Mike Volpe's latest, at that time, article, and basically why it's not journalism. However, Jay totally blew up his own stream, blamed it on catch-up, and they never finished it. So I decided I was going to read it out loud for you guys and get it up there. So here we go. I'm working on this, so like I said, bear with me. So this was written on November 29th, 2025. And it's titled The Rogue Critique. Mike Volpe's article isn't journalism. A one-sided narrative with training wheels still on. Every few months, Mike Volpe publishes something that reminds the world he is not a journalist, so much as a man with a keyboard, a grudge, and a talent for mistaking his opinions for evidence. His recent article about the Ohio Protective Order involving Jeremy Hales, John Cook, and Michelle Preston is the perfect example of that pattern. It reads less like reporting and more like a frustrated Yelp review of reality. Volpe tries very hard to give the impression that he is uncovering wrongdoing, exposing corruption, and shining a light on overlooked legal injustices. In reality, he is simply rearranging the furniture of his own biases and hoping the reader won't notice that none of the foundation underneath exists. Below is a detailed rogue critique, the kind that he would never publish about himself. 1. The problem starts with facts. He doesn't have many. Volpe gets very few facts right. The date of the hearing, the existence of the protection order, and the identity of the magistrate. Beyond that, his article becomes a collage of assumptions dressed up as conclusions. He states that Hales fails to get a protection order in Florida. No citation, no case numbering, no ruling, nothing. He calls the Ohio filing forum shopping, again without providing any legal basis or documentation. He claims the magistrate relied on dubious evidence, but provides no analysis of why it was dubious, how it was used, or what standard the court applied. He never even explains what the Ohio statute requires for a protection order. He simply announces his judgment and expects the readers to absorb it as fact. This is not journalism, it's a PR narrative. I added PR in there, sorry. 2. Legal assertions without legal knowledge. Volpe regularly makes sweeping legal claims without explaining the law, citing precedent, or demonstrating any understanding of procedure. His article declares ethical violations, improper conduct, frivolous filings, and jurisdictional errors, all without a single supporting document. For example, he states that attorney Sean Martin's withdrawal likely violated several Ohio rules of professional conduct. That is a serious allegation, requiring either a bar ruling or, at the very least, a documented analysis of the rule and the timeline. Volpe supplies neither. Instead, he pairs a screenshot of the rule with his personal interpretation, which is about as useful as pairing a screenshot of the Constitution with a toddler's commentary on federalism. He similarly asserts that the contempt ruling was bogus. Based on what? He does not provide the transcript. He does not summarize the evidence. He does not analyze the legal basis. He simply states the conclusion. When a writer uses conclusory language, without proof, it is because they lack both. 3. One-sided reporting presented as balanced truth. Volpe's article quotes exactly one person, Michelle Preston. Her perspective matters, but journalism requires more than repeating a source's grievances. He does not quote the magistrate, any court filings, the video evidence, the opposing lawyer, or even Sean Martin's full explanation for his withdrawal. He does not explore whether jurisdiction had already been litigated in earlier hearings. It had. He does not address procedural limits that might have constrained Martin. He does not provide the full motion for extension, only a cropped excerpt that conveniently supports his view. The entire piece is constructed from one witness's interpretation of events, reframed through Volpe's ongoing personal hostility towards anyone who does not align with his preferred narrative. Balanced reporting requires at least two sides. Volpe cannot even deliver 1.5. 4. The writing is sloppy because the thinking is sloppy. Let's address the writing itself. The structure jumps around without cohesion, weaving in and out of events without anchoring them in a timeline or legal context. Screenshots are inserted abruptly without explanation. Sentences are grammatically unstable, often running together or collapsing under the weight of missing punctuation. The result is not merely unpolished, it is distracting. Readers are forced to mentally organize the material to make it make sense, or to make sense of it. Apparently, I can't read. And once they do, they realize the content does not hold up. Good writing comes from clear thinking. This piece has neither. The omission problem. What he leaves out is worse than what he concludes. Some of the most concerning issues are not what Volpe wrote, but what he carefully did not write. He does not mention why the Ohio court originally accepted jurisdiction, what evidence supported the initial PO, what was actually shown on the video in the contempt hearing, and it was shown, whether jurisdiction had already been ruled upon, Martin's full legal reasoning for not re-arguing specific issues, whether the clients were actually unable to appeal, the full content of the extension motion, any procedural limitations at play, any factual context that contradicts his storyline. These omissions are fundamentally change the meaning of the events. A journalist includes context. A propagandist removes it. 6. Projection, bias, and the attempt to manufacture villains. Volpe has a pattern. He picks his heroes and villains, then writes a story that fits his emotional needs. In this case, Michelle and John become the heroes, Hales, the attorney, and the magistrate become the villains, and Volpe writes himself into the narration as the crusading truth teller that exposes injustice. The problem is, none of this is tied to reality. It is tied to his need for an adversary. His habit of calling people cowards or insinuating they are influenced by YouTube friendships is not journalism. It's a personal projection wearing the mask of reporting. Volpe accuses others of the very behaviors he routinely exhibits, such as selective evidence, lack of transparency, legal ignorance, and emotional over-identification with his subjects. It is not difficult to see this pattern. It is simply difficult to take it seriously. The rogue verdict. After reviewing the entire piece, the conclusion is painfully obvious. This is not journalism. It is not investigative reporting. It is not a legal analysis. It is a one-sided, undercooked narrative stitched together from assumptions, missing context, and whatever personal grudges Mike Volpe happened to be nursing when he opened his laptop. If he is being paid for this attempt at public relations, the client should demand a refund, a written apology, and possibly financial compensation for emotional distress. Volpe delivers a handful of accurate details, then buries them under a fog bank of unsupported claims, sloppy legal commentary, and whatever emotional turbulence he confused for evidence that day. The piece doesn't merely fail to meet basic journalism standards. It misses them by such a distance, it should come with a telescope. If this were submitted to an editor, they would send it back with a note that simply reads, "Please don't do this again." If it landed on a journalism professor's desk, it would return looking like a murder scene in red ink. And if the Society of Professional Journalists ever used it in a workshop, it would be under the section titled Exhibit A through Z, What Not to Do Under Any Circumstance. In short, Volpe did not produce a news story. He produced an opinion piece without the honesty to admit it and without the documentation to support it. And that's the Rogue critique. If Mike Volpe wants to argue otherwise, the burden of proof is entirely on him, a concept he struggles with more than anyone else in this entire case, including the people actually standing before the judge. So here are the ratings for the journalistic principles from ChatGPT. I had them read the article and I asked them to rate it 1 to 10 against journalistic principles. Accuracy, 2 out of 10. Verification, 1 out of 10. Sourcing, 1 out of 10. Balance and fairness, 0 out of 10. Context, 2 out of 10. Independence, 1 out of 10. Transparency, 2 out of 10. Accountability, 0. Professionalism, 1 out of 10. So the final score, 1.1 out of 10, failing by every professional metric. So that is the article that I wrote that, I hope you can't see that, Jay blew up and totally botched. But I just wanted people to understand that just because somebody writes something, it doesn't mean that it's factual, when by journalistic standards, it does not meet those. And what I do before I start writing is I do run the article through ChatGPT, ask it to rate it, and give me the examples of why it doesn't meet journalistic principles. Now, I do that because, yes, I went to college for public relations, and I did take writing and journalist classes. However, I do have POTS and I get brain fog, and so sometimes I forget things, plus I, graduated in 2000, so it's like, whatever. Well, technically, in case anybody does bring it up, I finished my classes in 2000. However, I moved across the country and did not apply for graduation like a stupid 21-year-old. And so my actual degree is 2018 because I was then finally able to finish it online. But just in case somebody tries to do a big old expose, she said she graduated in 2000, but it's really 2018. Fuck off. So I'm going to keep doing this, Mike, as long as you keep pretending you're a journalist and not admitting that you're paid PR and a propagandist. I'm going to keep calling you out. So keep it up, and so am I. So until later, XOXO.